Thank you so much for joining us for today's Lunch with Haley. I am Brad Smith. I am the Director of Search Engine Optimization and Social Media Marketing here at Haley. And joining me on the call today will be Jenny Keller, one of our social media marketing advisors and a Google Analytics expert too. Today we're going to walk you through Google Analytics and talk about how you can use this data and this great information to help improve your existing staffing website and also help you plan if you're looking at redoing or reinventing your website in the near future. So let's jump right in, and we have a lot to cover today. Before I jump into today's agenda, though, I do want to give a short disclaimer. We're going to be going through a lot of different data in analytics, presenting some benchmarks that you can use to see how you compare against other staffing and recruiting firms. So today's webinar is probably going to be on an intermediate level. We're going to gloss over some of the basics, some of the things that people are already comfortable with in analytics. But we're also not going to be able to dig deep enough into really advanced topics. So I do want to extend the invitation to everyone on today's call to connect with us offline off the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, I'll share some contact information with you. And both Jenny and I would be happy to do a free Google Analytics consultation for you, a one-on-one consultation where we look specifically at your website. So while today I'll give you a great understanding of what you want to be looking at in analytics, please take us up on that offer and we'll look at your site specifically and provide some specific recommendations for you that you can use and implement on your own. So let's jump into today's agenda. We'll first start with a quick intro to analytics, again, very high level here. We'll take a look at your dashboard. So what do you see when you first log into analytics? We'll talk about understanding your target audience. It's the key to effective marketing is knowing your target audience and making sure that you gather some great information about that target audience. We'll show you how to use analytics to do just that. We'll analyze traffic data, traffic sources. A question I get all the time is how do you gauge the effectiveness of your website? How do you gauge the effectiveness of marketing, of PPC, pay-per-click advertising, of social media? We'll dig into each of those at points throughout the webinar today. We'll look at improving conversions. Okay, so you could get all the traffic in the world to your website, but if you're not converting anybody, it's meaningless. So we'll talk about what stats you can look at in analytics to see how you're doing on conversions and pinpoint areas on your site in which you need to maybe improve a little bit. We'll talk about some advanced reporting and some automated reporting that you can do to stay up to date and aware of what's going on with your website on a daily, a weekly, or monthly basis. And then we'll talk about what next. Now that you have all these tools at your disposal, what should you be doing with them? How often should you review them? We'll answer all of those good questions. And of course, we'll try to leave some time for Q&A at the end. And I encourage everyone during the presentation, use the question box in your right-hand panel there. Ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll try to jump on those questions if they're appropriate during the presentation and throughout. And if we don't cover them then, we will follow up afterwards, after the webinar. We'll either cover them in the Q&A session or reach out one-to-one. And again, feel free to reach out to us afterwards if you have specific questions about your company's website or situation. So to start, what is Google Analytics? Well, Google classifies Google Analytics as enterprise-class web analytics. What does that really mean? What does enterprise-class web analytics mean? Really, what Google Analytics is it provides detailed statistics about visits to your website. And it's really essential to gauging how your site is performing and how other marketing initiatives that are both online and offline are performing. One frequent question I get all the time, how do I install analytics and how much does it cost? You know, all this great data can't be free, can it? And actually it is. Google Analytics, the basic version of analytics, is free. Now, there is a little bit of cost to install it on your site, a little bit of cost, a little bit of effort. And what you're looking at here, there's a little piece of code that is created in Google Analytics. So to start using analytics, you need to create a Google account. You can go to google.com/analytics, and you can create a Google Analytics account for your company. What will happen is you'll enter your company website address, and Google will spit back a little piece of code, similar to what you're looking at on screen here. And your website will have a unique account number, and that's what's highlighted here. You'll need to take this piece of code and install it on every page in your website that you want to track data for. And we suggest putting this on every page in your website. So from your home page to your Contact Us page, if you have a job board, get that on your job board. If you have a blog, make sure that this code is on your blog. You want to track everything on your website. You will probably, and this is where the cost comes into play, you will most likely need the help of a programmer to get this code on your website. If your website is built on a CMS platform, content management platform like WordPress, there are plugins in which you can add the code easily through a plugin. But your best bet is probably reaching out to the programmer, the person that designed your site, or if you have questions, we can help you too, and get this code on your website. You can also look at the code of your site. So you can go to your home page. You can right-click and click View Source. And you can see if this little piece of code is already installed on your website. If it is, you have Google Analytics. And now you just need to find out who installed it and get some access to it. All right, so why should you really care about Google Analytics, and what impact does it have on your business? Well, first and foremost, your website is your first impression. People, when they're shopping, when they're doing their due diligence before choosing a vendor, they're looking at your website. Okay, they're spending time there. They're educated consumers. You need to make sure that your website provides a great first impression and make sure that it's not your last impression. So you can use analytics to see how many repeat visitors you get to your site, how many return visitors you get to your site, how much overall traffic you get. Okay, if your site's underperforming, if you're not getting a lot of traffic, you need to invest some money there. If you find that people are coming to your site but they're never coming back, well, maybe you need to make some changes to your website to make sure that they do come back. Google Analytics can also help you make more educated marketing, business, and budget decisions. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Well, in analytics, you can see if you have spikes in traffic. You can see if there's a marketing campaign that you just released that had a great impact on driving traffic to your website. You can see if that yellow page ad where you include your website is driving traffic there. You can see if your pay-per-click campaigns are having a nice impact. You can use all of this information to make better business decisions and better decisions with your marketing dollars. And last on this list, your website can be your top sales performer and your top recruiting partner. And what do I mean by that? Again, people are doing their due diligence. They're looking at your website before deciding to work with you. Your website is open 24/7. Your website always answers, always picks up. Your visitors are never sent to voicemail. So you need to make sure that you have a great presence online, and you need to make sure you know what's happening on your site, because your website can be a sales generator and your best source of candidates. All right, so we're going to talk about a lot of different data, a lot of things to look at. And when people first look at analytics, a lot of people say, yeah, I have access to analytics. There's just so much in there. I don't know what to do with this data. Okay, we're going to walk you through exactly what to do with this data. And we're not going to point out everything in analytics, but we're going to touch on the key statistics that you want to make sure you pay attention to. So to get us started, I'm going to invite Jenny to walk us through the Google Analytics dashboard. And when you first come into analytics, this is what you're going to see. So Jenny, can you point some things out here on this page that everyone on the call should pay attention to?
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Like Brad said, this is the first screen you're going to see when you log into Google Analytics. It's been installed on your site. It's been collecting data. So now let's go in and take a look at it. So this screen that we're looking at right now is called the dashboard. And I'm going to point out a couple of key features that are going to be present wherever we're looking at Google Analytics. And the first thing I wanted to point out is on the left-hand side, there's the navigation. And the navigation is a series of reports. It's all in nested data, and we can really drill down to very detailed reports. But there's also some high-level overview type of data, and that's a lot of the stuff we're going to be taking a look at today. And so we're going to be taking this from the approach of going from the top of the list to the bottom of the list, and that's what we've structured this presentation about or through. So that can kind of get you an idea of how we're going to be addressing each of those things and if we're going to cover it. The next thing I want to bring to your attention is in the upper right-hand corner where it's the dates. That little date bar, it can drop down and you can change the dates that you're looking at. So that will change what data you're reviewing and what decisions you're looking at. And so now I want to kind of talk about, well, what are we looking at this screen? Well, right now what we're looking at is the audience overview. And Brad's going to talk a little bit later about some of the specific stats that we're looking at. But what you see right here is you see a graph. And this kind of displays the total number of visits right now. And this graph you can change based upon, hours, the days, the number of weeks, the months. And so you can really break down the data into very specific time chunks to take a look at. And below the graph, you'll also see some of the high-level statistics for the site of just what's been happening, who's visiting, and what are they doing. And I'm next going to kind of dive into a couple of those statistics. A couple of those statistics are the visits versus unique visitors. And oftentimes, this is where a lot of people are like, aren't those the same thing? Well, no. It's a little confusing, so I'll try to break this down in a way that everybody can understand. Visits, they are the total number of times that your site was visited. All of your visits could be from 1,000 people or 20,000 people visiting over and over again. That's a great stat to tell you how many times your site was visited, but really, it's important to know how many of these people were actually coming. How many were there? Were there 1,000 or 20,000? So this is where the unique visitors metric comes into play. This tracks the exact number of people. But when I say people and how Google accounts for people is not based upon me or Brad. It's basing it upon the number of devices. Because every device that you use to visit a website that has Google on it, it installs a little cookie. And so that cookie is counted as one person. So that's something to keep in mind is you might have someone that visits on their cell phone and then their computer and then their iPad. Well, it's only one person technically, but Google Analytics views it as 3 unique visitors. So it's just a little thing to keep in mind as you go through your statistics. Unique visitors is kind of a ballpark, but it's a really good way to kind of break down, well, who's coming, what are they doing here, and who are they. And now Brad's going to tell you a little bit about who your visitors are.
Great, thank you, Jenny. And we have some great questions coming in already, so thank you, everyone. Somebody just wrote that they have Google Analytics installed on their site, but they have 2 areas of their website which aren't hosted on their web server that they're not getting traffic data for. And what I assume is happening here is maybe they use some third-party staffing software, and maybe they have a client login area, or maybe they have a job board on their site that isn't necessarily hosted on their server. Can you get data, can you track data on those types of pages that are quote-unquote not under your control? And the short answer is most likely. And what I mean by that is your Google Analytics tracking code, you could pull that code and you could supply that to your third-party provider, so your staffing software company, your job board company, and they may be able to insert that on to the pages that they host so that you can track that data. Again, the only caveat to that is it may depend on the software, so you need to reach out to whoever's hosting those pages for you and make sure that they can input that code. So great question, thank you. All right, as Jenny mentioned, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into audience overview and who is visiting your website. So in that left-hand column on Analytics when you walk in, there's an Audience tab. Click on that Audience tab, and you can take a look at total visits. So over whatever specified time frame you have, how many total visits came to your site. You can look at new versus returning visits. And I can skew this stat in 2 ways. I can look at new versus returning visits and say, okay, 90% of my traffic is from new people that haven't been to my site before. And I might say, oh, well, that's terrific. My search engine optimization is working great because I'm getting in front of all these new people. But on the flip side, I might say, you know what, if only 10% of people are return visits, that might mean that my website isn't, there's no reason for people to come back. So I'm not getting enough return visits. So as you can see, you need to take this statistic with a grain of salt. What I generally like to see is a mix of about 60%, 60 to 70% new visits, 30 to around 30% returning. If you see that your website is skewed very far in one direction or the other, you may want to look at why that's skewed and try to address that. Next thing I suggest taking a look at is pages per visit. This tells you when a person comes to your site, how many pages did they visit? Did they stay on your site for a while? If you find that your average pages per visit is a page or two, you probably need to take a look at your site and see where people are falling off. And we'll get into that here in a second. But you want to make sure that people are staying on your site for a while. I see on average pages per visit across the staffing industry, and I'm basing this on about 200 to 300 staffing firm websites that we track. I see average pages per visit around 2. So if you're below that, take a look at why people may be leaving your site. And last on this list, what you want to look at is average duration on your site. So how much time are people spending when they get to your website? On average, again, this is a stat that I see that's pretty frequent, is about 1.5 minutes. If people are spending less than 1.5 minutes on your site, there's probably a reason for that. Maybe your information isn't good enough. Maybe your site's difficult to navigate. Maybe they just got there and it wasn't what they were looking for. But I'd shoot for 1.5 minutes or higher with average duration. All right. The next thing I want to point out under the Audience tab is location. Google Analytics lets you get a general idea of where people, where visitors coming to your site are located. And what I find really useful about this is drilling down. So when you first look at the Locations tab, it will give you a world view. So you'll see what countries across the globe people are coming from. Well, you can drill down. You can drill down into county or territory. You can look at city. And I suggest looking at city and figuring out where traffic is coming from and what cities you're getting the most traffic from. This can be helpful if you have offices in several different locations, so you can see from a search engine standpoint, from a traffic standpoint, how well you're doing in specific cities or specific markets. If there's an area where you're not getting traffic from that you really want to emphasize, you can think about what other things you can do to your site to drive more traffic from that general location. Maybe you can add some blog posts that relate to the specific city or geographic region that you're trying to target. But again, this gives you a great sense of overall where is traffic coming from. And I get a lot of people that ask me, I can see what city people are coming from. Can I see, what company the person that came to my site is visiting, or can I figure out what the person's name is? And from analytics, you cannot. That technology doesn't exist in analytics. There are some third-party companies out there that claim to give you some more detailed information on exactly who is visiting your site, but I have not found a great service yet that really drills down to that level of detail. All right. The next thing that I generally like to look at under Audience is the Technology tab. And what's important in the Technology tab? This will tell you what internet browser people are using. And why should you care what people are using? Well, your website will appear differently based on internet browsers. So your website probably looks different for somebody that's an Internet Explorer, viewing it in Internet Explorer 6, and somebody that's viewing it in the latest version of Firefox. And you need to just be aware of this. So what I generally tell people to do is take a look at your technology, see what browser and what version people are using the most of, and use the 80-20 rule. Make sure that your website appears great for people that are using the majority of browsers. Okay, there are going to be some issues. Somebody that has a very, very old version of Internet Explorer is going to have some issues. And there are a lot of issues with Internet Explorer. But you just want to be cognizant of this. You want to take a look at what browser people are using and make sure that your website appears properly in that browser. The other thing to consider is screen resolutions. Everyone has their screen resolution set to some setting. Some people have very high resolution, some people have very low resolutions. Again, use the 80-20 rule. When looking at your site, make sure that your website appears and is optimized for people with the most frequent, most popular screen resolution. If you are deciding to look at designing a new site, make sure that whoever you're working with, the website programmer, the website designer, has a firm understanding of your traffic and takes a look at web browsers, takes a look at technology, takes a look at screen resolution. At Haley, when we're designing a site, we take all this into account to make sure that what we're designing looks phenomenal for the highest percentage of people out there. So again, just a question to ask your website programmer and make sure that they're designing your site to the latest and greatest specs. The next thing I suggest taking a look at under audience is mobile. And more people are using mobile devices to search the internet. And more people are using mobile devices to look at your site. In the past, I'd say just as recently as a year and a half, 2 years ago, mobile traffic on average to staffing websites I saw was about 3 to 5%. And it depended on what industry segment you were in, but it was about 3 to 5%. Now that number has skyrocketed. We're at between 10 and 12%. Again, it depends on what industry you're in, but about 10 to 12% of your website's traffic is probably coming from mobile devices. Okay. You need to make sure that your website is friendly on a mobile device. So get out your smartphone, get out your iPhone, look at your website. Is it easy to navigate? Do you have a dedicated mobile version of your site? You want to make sure that people have a good experience when they're looking at your site on a mobile device. I would expect that within the next year, we see that percentage of traffic that's hovering right around 10 or 12% from mobile. It's probably going to be 15 to 20 within the next by the end of the next year. So it's very important that you're cognizant of that. You look at mobile traffic and put a plan in place to make sure that your visitor's experience on a mobile device is a good one. I also often get the question asked, what do you think about mobile apps? I'm thinking about having an app developed. And what I generally tell people is, apps are great, but it's going to be extremely hard to get someone to install an app from a staffing or an employment company. There's really no reason to do it. And even if somebody does install it, how long are they going to keep that app on their phone? Instead of looking at spending and investing in developing a mobile app, I think your money's probably better spent developing in a mobile site that is a mobile-friendly version. All right. Jenny, if you wouldn't mind kind of taking us through the next slide here. We're looking at traffic sources and an overview of where traffic is coming from.
Sure. Yeah, so what report we're looking at right here, this is another one of those high-level reports called the traffic sources. And what this particular report here is it really tells us how people found your website. This is important to understand who your visitor is, but it's also really important to understand where are they coming from. So here you're just kind of seeing, once again, another one of those main graphs. And then right below that, there are the 4 main referral sources of where your traffic's coming from. Those 4 types of traffic are search, referral, direct, and campaign. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about these in more depth in just a minute. But you'll see underneath that that little pie chart there is that there is also a little graph there on the right that displays keywords. And I know it might be a little hard for you to read on your screen, but those actually are keywords there listed out in the blue with the number of visits that came from each keyword. We will be talking about those as well in more depth, but I just wanted to bring this report to your attention so you can kind of get an understanding of, at a glance, what is your traffic like on your website. So now then, to talk a little bit more about the exact type of traffic, here is that same pie chart blown up a little bit more. And the number one thing that I want to bring to your attention is the search traffic. Search traffic are visitors who came to your site using a search engine, whether it be Google or Bing or Yahoo. This just means that someone typed into a search engine, and whatever query they used, your website was displayed in the results, and then they clicked on it. This means that this is called organic, or there's also some paid versions of search traffic. The next traffic type is called a referral. Now, referrals are people who came to your site through another website. This could mean that they clicked from one of your social media profiles, they clicked on a link in an email or one of your marketing campaigns, or they also clicked on a link on another site such as the Better Business Viewer, something like that. The next traffic type is actually direct. Now, these people are people who know who you are and they're going directly to you. That means that they found you one of three ways, either typing your URL into the browser's address bar at the top, they clicked on a bookmark that they had, or they clicked on a direct link that was, in someone's email signature or something. The last traffic type that we're highlighting is campaigns. Now, campaigns is a little bit more advanced tracking option, but this allows us to segment or track campaigns that may be running, such as a paid search campaign or other types of campaigns where it's an effort outside of your normal marketing efforts. How people are finding you is important, especially when it comes to the visitors finding you within search engines. And more importantly, it's really important to take a look at what keywords are they using to find you. So on the next report, I'm going to show you here. Here is a more in-depth look of that keyword report. So on the left-hand side, we're working our way through the navigation on the left, and now we've moved on to the search overview from the traffic sources overview page. Now, this report lists literally every single term that someone used to find your site. Not only does this give you a good idea of what terms people are using to find you, are they using your brand name? Are they using, a particular staffing term? Is it temp agencies? Are you people finding you with a recruiting search term? I mean, literally, there's hundreds of thousands of millions, I'm sure, search terms that people could use to find your website. And it's always a good idea to keep tabs on how people are finding you, as well as, have some goals. What types of terms would you like to rank for? Do you want to rank for top industrial staffing firm in, Buffalo, New York, or wherever you happen to be located? So this can really give you a good idea of how people are finding you and what they're using to use to find you that. On this report, you'll also see that there are the number of visits for each keyword, the number of pages they visited, and how long they were on your site. So you can get an idea of, well, are people staying on my site longer if they use temp agencies, or are they staying on my site longer if they're using employment agencies? Just a few key things to keep in mind.
Jenny, if I could chime in here, you notice on this example that this particular company is getting a lot of very specific keyword traffic from things like temp agencies in New Jersey, staffing agencies in New Jersey. When you're examining this report and you're looking at this report, make sure that you're getting great terms like that. So the goal of search engine optimization is to get traffic from people that are looking for the services that you offer, that may not know you by name yet. So if you get to this report and all you see is different derivations of your company name, you don't see any of these great terms like temp agencies in, staffing agencies in. That's a cue. That tells you that you need to do something different with either your search engine optimization or add better content to your site that is optimized around those terms. Again, the goal is to get people that are looking for services, that low-hanging fruit, people that are great prospects for you. Get them to your site so that you can convert them into sales.
Thanks, Brad. That's a really good point, and I was going to bring up too. To add to what you said, if you're going to be adding fresh content to your site, one of the easiest and best ways to do this is with a blog. If you have a content management system on your website that allows you to easily log in and post a blog, it's great. You don't have to be a programmer to put content up. It's published, and not only are search engines finding it, but potential candidates and clients are finding it. And so, our number one recommendation is, you should really be focusing on blogging as well as your site's SEO. By and large, we see that, clients and companies that, try to, focus on, adding fresh content to their website through a blog usually have about a 200% increase in the number of new keyword terms that are driving traffic after, 9 to 12 months of being frequently, bloggers. So it's something we should, you should really think about adding to your current marketing if you don't currently have it. And if you have it, great. You're on the right track and you're a step ahead of a lot of people.
Great. Thanks, Jane. There were a few questions that came in on the previous slide. And you notice number one on this list under keywords that are driving traffic there is not provided. And Google Analytics isn't perfect. It's a free tool. So when you see not provided, that just means that they weren't able to track exactly what keyword that was. Okay, so maybe it was a competing search engine that wasn't releasing that information, but they, for whatever reason, couldn't track it. And we've seen the total number of not provideds increase over the last year, but that still doesn't mean that the rest of the data isn't good. The rest of that data is extremely good and extremely useful. There is a paid version of Google Analytics that I'm told eliminates a lot of the not provideds and gives you some more detailed information. I've never used it myself. I did a little bit of research into the cost of it, and I'm told that it is $150,000 a yearly fee to get the paid version of Google Analytics. So I don't know about everyone on this call, but I don't think that it's worth the investment there of $150,000. So I suggest there are little intricacies like this that the data isn't 100% complete, but it's still extremely, extremely valuable. All right, moving on. We want to talk a little bit about traffic sources and what a traffic source is and what you should do with this data. Okay, again, this is in the left-hand column. If you go to traffic sources, you can look at all traffic. This will tell you exactly where people are coming from when they get to your site. So as you can see in this example here, the #1 traffic driver for this website is Google organic searches. That means non-paid searches. So people are finding their site by going to Google, typing in a search query, and clicking on an organic result. There's direct traffic, people that are just opening a browser and typing in your website address. That's direct traffic. There's traffic from Bing, Yahoo, traffic from a variety of sources. Okay, when you're looking at this report, what I suggest doing is looking at your biggest traffic drivers. So where are you having the biggest impact? Also look at pages per visit and average visit duration. So if you find on this list that there's one particular source that is much higher in pages per visit, people are staying on your website longer, that's a cue to you. That says, okay, this might be a very good source of traffic for me. It may be my target audience, so maybe I should invest a little bit more time, a little bit more resources in that source. You can also look at this list and see how job boards are driving traffic to your site. You may see that you're getting a ton of traffic from Indeed, or it will tell you exactly how much traffic is coming to your site from Career Builder or Monster. You can use this data, again, to make better business decisions and better marketing decisions. If you find that you're spending money on a local job board and it's not driving any traffic, it's not driving any people there, maybe you cut that out of your marketing budget and invest that in a source or in a vertical that is having a bigger impact. So pay attention to this. Pay attention to time on site, traffic source, pages per visit, and use this data to make better decisions. A newer feature in Google Analytics is social traffic. There is a tab on the left-hand column. You can click on it that says social media. This will tell you exactly how much traffic you're getting to your site from social media outlets. And what we found is LinkedIn is a great source of traffic, both internally here for our efforts, and for staffing firms we found that when used appropriately, LinkedIn is a very, very valuable of highly targeted traffic. So use LinkedIn groups, share content, write blog posts, post everything. I'll post all of that content on Facebook. If you have a company party, get pictures up on Facebook. Use Twitter to get your message out. Use all of these social tools to get your message out. And there's a twofold benefit here. One, you're getting in front of more people. So people that you're connected with on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, they're seeing your name more frequently. You're staying top of mind. You're hopefully providing some value to them with things that you're posting. And again, you're building brand and name recognition. But the other benefit is that social media has a direct impact on search engine rankings. And I'm going to tell you now, if you want to rank well in search engines, you cannot ignore social media. You need to be active on social media. It is becoming it's having more and more influence on search engine results. So the search engine wants to provide the most relevant search results to people. They're looking at social media for cues on what's relevant. So they're looking at how many people connect with you on LinkedIn. They're looking at how many likes you have on Facebook. They're looking at how often people are liking your content or +1ing your content in Google+. Okay, Okay, so even if traffic to your website is low directly from these social media outlets, you still need to have a strong presence there because it's having a direct impact on search results. I had a good question come in. How can staffing companies use Pinterest? You see Pinterest on this list. Pinterest is a photo sharing platform where you take photos and you pin it to a wall. I've seen some staffing companies do some great things with posting appropriate interview dress based on the position you're interviewing for. You can use it to post different types of resume formats. Or you could post fun things like, what's going on in your office, Halloween costume ideas for the office. So think about fun, out-of-the-box things that you can use for Pinterest. And I will say that, I was a little leery on Pinterest value for staffing agencies, but the companies that are doing it, I've seen them getting great traffic from Pinterest back to their website. So it is a valuable tool. All right, Jenny, I'm going to push this back over to you. Kind of walk us through content and give us an overview.
Sure, thank you. This is another one of those high-level reports that we're seeing throughout this presentation, and this particular report is called the Content Overview. This really is telling us about, what is resonating with your visitors. How is it being used and what's really working for them. So I'm going to kind of go through a few of these high-level stats that we're seeing here and tell you about what they are. The first one on the list there is page views. This is the total number of times web pages were viewed. Honestly, this is valuable because of the fact, we want to make sure that, this is high. If you had 10 visitors and there was only 10 page views, that means they're probably not going to another page afterwards. So you want to keep an eye on this, but there are certainly more valuable metrics that we're going to get into that you should keep an eye on. An example of one of those is unique page views. This means the number of individual visitors who looked at pages, meaning if the visitor visited one page 3 times, it will only be counted as once. So if you have a job seeker and they visit your job board homepage 10 times, it's only going to be counted as once. But if we see that particular visitor visited 3 other pages on your website, that means you have valuable content to that job seeker in addition to your job board. And so that's a really nice metric to just keep an eye on. The bounce rate's the next one on the list. This is the percentage of users who only visited one page on your website before leaving. We want to keep an eye on this because, if it's really high, it's not going to be very good for your website, and we might want to talk about making some changes. However, if it's, on the lower side or at least below 60, then, you don't need to be too concerned about it. Now, the next one is exit rate. Everyone has to leave your website at some point. But this particular metric really compares the number of exits compared to the total number of visits. This stat is useful when examining specific pages more than a high-level visit number. So Brad's going to talk to you a little bit more about taking a look at individual pages now.
Jenny, thanks for the overview. Once you get past the overview, it gives you a 10,000-foot view of how your website is performing. But I suggest drilling down and looking at the performance of individual pages on your website. And this is where you can get some great data to improve your client and candidate experience on your website. You can look at every single page in your website that you're tracking data for and see how long people stay on the site. You can look at where they entered your website. So most people enter your website on the home page, but if you're doing good at blogging and distributing content, they'll enter other places on your site. You can look at bounce rate, which Jenny just described, and you can look at exit rates here. What I suggest doing is look here and see what the most popular pages on your site are. Most likely what you're going to find is that your home page is the most popular page on your site, the most visited page on your site. Makes sense. Most people land there to begin with. And when you look at analytics, when you see that / which you see next to the number 1 there, that represents your home page. Okay, so that's the top level of your site. The next page down, if you have a job board on your site, if you have a place where people can go and search for positions and apply for positions, that most likely is going to be number 2 on your list. And I wanted to point that out because if you don't have a job board on your site, you need one. That is the most popular feature on any staffing firm's website is a job board. Candidates love it. They want to go to your site. They want to see what positions are available. If you don't have one, get one. Then you can go through the rest of your site and take a look at how frequently people are visiting pages. Okay, you may be surprised at where people are going on your site. Okay, so think about the pages that you think are important and see if they really are important to your visitors. Another stat that you want to pay attention to on this page is average time on page. If you're going through this and you see that the average time on a page is very low, you want to take a look at that page and figure out why. It may be low for a reason. Maybe there's not much content on that page, so people can read through it really quickly. But if it's a page that you feel is extremely important and the time spent on that page is low, maybe you need to redesign that page. Maybe you need new copy on that page. The next thing that you should take a look at is exit rate. And Jenny mentioned that what exit rate was a minute ago, the page that people leave your website on. Now, organically, there'll be some pages on your site that people just leave on that's natural. For example, your Contact Us page. They get to your Contact Us page. Maybe they filled out a form to reach out to you, or maybe they just needed your phone number or directions to your office. They got what they needed and they left. Your exit rate on your Contact Us page is probably going to be high. But if you take a look at your online job application and you see that the exit rate is high, that they aren't filling out that form, that's a cue to you. Maybe your form is too long. Okay, maybe people get to it and they just get halfway through and say, oh, geez, this is taking too long. I'm just going to leave. Maybe your exit rate on your home page is really high. In that case, you want to look at redesigning your homepage or look at what content you're presenting there, or maybe have better calls to action on those pages. Maybe on your services page, the exit rate is high. What can you do there? Maybe you put a great, nice button that says request temps, learn more about our services, request a free consultation. So look at exit rates, determine what pages on your site have the highest exit rates, and then look at your site and see what you can do to address that. Now, I will say that your home page probably is going to have a fairly high exit rate. And in the example we're looking at here, there's a 60% exit rate. That's kind of natural because a lot of times you'll get traffic from people that maybe are looking for something else and they'll leave on your home page. Or a lot of times what else happens is people go through your site, click on the home button, and then leave from the home page. So don't be too alarmed if you see that percentage in the 50 to 60 range, but look at the other pages on your site to find out where people are leaving and then take action to fix that. A question came in too about the slide we're looking at. What is the difference between, in this example, between the / and the / index.smpl? That / index.smpl is this particular company's job board. Okay, that's just how the job board, that's what the job board URL is on their website. So you'll just have to take a look at your existing site and determine what URLs look like for your site. But that / is your home page, and then / something else is another page on your site. All right, Jenny, why don't you walk us a little bit through goals? This is kind of a little bit more advanced feature in analytics, but it is extremely helpful. Goals aren't hard to set up, so kind of walk us through what goals are and how everyone on the call can use them.
Absolutely. Conversions and goals, this is a section that is more advanced. It requires a little legwork from your web company or yourself in setting up some advanced filters and things like that. But it's not super complicated, so don't get scared away here. Goals and conversions in analytics, it really allows us to define and set specific goals, meaning we can track how many people complete a specific action. For example, they view a key page. They filled out a form on your website. They applied online and they got to the thank you, we'll be processing your application soon page. So it's really helpful because instead of having to wade through a whole bunch of reports, try to add up how many people did something, this way you can just click on one report button and it'll tell you how many people did the thing we wanted them to do. And so it's really helpful in being able to not only make some marketing decisions, but also see, well, what can we do to increase the number of conversions or goals. So real quick, I'm going to walk you through how to set up a goal or conversion in analytics. And so, once you've logged into analytics, Brad, if you'll go ahead to the next slide real quick.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you. That's okay. So once we've logged into analytics, in the upper right-hand corner, and you don't see it here on this page, but in the upper right-hand corner of your browser, you're going to have a little button that says Admin. Now, if you click on that Admin button, it'll bring up this Admin section of your Google Analytics account. That's what you see there in the left-hand side of that picture. From the screen, go ahead and select the Goal tab, and then it'll bring up this other Goal window where we'll add a new one. So what we'll need to do is you go ahead, you fill out your specific information. For example, you could do thank you page, meaning, someone submitted a contact form and now they're visiting the thank you page. And then after you fill in the name of what it is, you go ahead and select what type of goal type it is. URL destination. This would be, you'd select this option if you had a thank you page that appeared after your contact page. So then the only way anyone will visit your thank you page is if they, already contacted you. So then we would, say, all right, anytime someone visits the thank you page, that means they contacted us and it's a goal. They converted. Then another option you could select is a visit duration. This is oftentimes used if you're wanting to say, well, how many people stayed on my site longer than, 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever set amount of time you have that you wanted to be able to track that was interesting. The next option is number of pages per visit. If you had a really low number of pages per visit, say people were only visiting 1.5 pages per time they visited your site, and then you made a whole bunch of changes to try to increase that, you'd want to make sure you set up a goal after making those changes to try to track and see how that has changed over time. So you could put in there, how many different times or pages you wanted them to visit. And then the last option, this is a pretty advanced one, and it's called event, meaning we can set up a very specific event, and there's some, a little bit extra coding and things that has to be done, but it's, as long as you can read some instructions on other online resources, you'll be able to get it figured out. But where this is used, or especially helpful, is if you wanted to track the number of downloads. If you have a white paper on your website and you wanted to know how many people downloaded it, it's really helpful to do something like that. And so, those are just some different, ways you can use Google Analytics as a staffing firm to really learn more about your website and what people are doing on it. There's also something that's really cool on Google Analytics that allows us to connect your paid online advertising efforts directly into Google Analytics. So, last week, I don't know if many of you saw, but we published a blog post on online advertising and staffing. This is, just the first of a multi-part blog series, but, we kind of talked a little bit about how, staffing companies aren't using Google Analytics or Google Adwords or, Facebook advertising or other options, too frequently yet in the industry. Well, it's a very viable option, and it has a lot of affordable opportunities for staffing companies to consider. But one of the particular platforms that blog post discussed, as well as we're going to dive into it more in depth in the upcoming weeks, is a platform called Google Adwords. Now, Google Adwords, it's obviously owned by Google, but it, every time you type into Google, and you see those little, ads that pop up at the very top of your search results or on the right-hand side, those are all ads, whether you know it or not, and if you click on it, someone's having to pay for that click. But, that's not bad. It's great for staffing companies because if you are doing online advertising through AdWords, you need to make sure you connect it to Google Analytics. That's because we can really track not only some campaign level data of, how much are you spending or how much do things cost. AdWords does track that, but you can really carry it over into analytics, meaning once someone who you had to pay for that came to your site, what did they do? How did they act? Did they convert? Ultimately, if you're having to pay for, clicks to your website, you want to make sure that, you're targeting the right individuals and, you hope that they're going to contact you. That's the end goal. But, by connecting your Google Analytics and your Google AdWords account, you can really delve into, your different advertising options as well as make strategic decisions based upon the results you have. So I just wanted to be sure I brought this up so you could kind of see the opportunities you may have and make sure that if you are running online advertising, be sure to connect your Google Analytics account and your Google AdWords just to make sure that you're getting as robust data as possible.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Yeah, goals tie into just making better business decisions and making better marketing budget decisions. So think about what goals you have for your company and for your marketing and see if they can be incorporated into your Google Analytics data so you can better track your investments. So Jenny, walk us through real quick advanced segments.
Sure. Advanced segments, you know, it's a really quick, easy way to get to, you know, shortcut data, meaning, you know, there are these preloaded filters. You can also make custom filters as well that you can really take a look at just specific audiences or specific behavior on your website. So here's the screen at the very top of your Google Analytics account. You see right there under the audience overview, it has that little button called Advanced Segments. And when you click on it, it drops down this window. Now, on the right-hand side, that's where, you know, a custom segment would appear if you were wanting to track your job board visitors or something very specific. On the left-hand side, those are some default segments that, you know, Google's preloaded. Now, if you want to go to the next screen, Brad, real quick.
Sure.
Here are the ones, you know, there are a ton of preloaded ones in there. Now, Google has those preloaded for everyone in the world, and obviously everyone isn't staffing companies. So, you know, we wanted to make it easy. Here are the 4 different advanced segments that we suggest you use. That's the new visitors, meaning if you apply this advanced segment, you will only be looking at new visitors data on your website. The next one's returning visitors, paid search traffic, and then regular search traffic, meaning they're organic visits. So, you know, once applied, you'll be looking at just this snippet of data, and it's really useful in, you know, really getting down into the nuts and bolts of one specific audience type.
Yeah, it's a real nice way to organize data and make it in a view that's really easy to consume once you're in analytics. All right, we're going to kind of round out the presentation talking a little bit about reporting. So we talked about a ton of statistics here. I wanted to thank you. I'm a very data-driven person. I love looking at statistics, but I know they can be boring for some people. So hopefully you found some value. One thing that I want to point out is you don't necessarily have to log into analytics to get this data. And it's a little feature that not many people use, but it can be extremely helpful. So at any screen, any report that you're on in analytics, across the top you'll see a bar that says Advanced Segments, Email, Export. You can export any of that data into an Excel file, PDF, something else that you can use elsewhere, or you can save down to your network. But you can also have reports emailed to you. Okay, so at any screen you're on in analytics, if you find a very helpful screen that you want to stay on track of, maybe you want to see, you know, on a weekly basis what keywords are driving traffic to your site, you can scroll up to the top of the screen, click on that email button, decide where you want that report emailed, decide what the subject line is, decide the format of that. I suggest using a PDF just because it's really easy to look at and it comes in a very nice format. And then you can click the send button. And not only can you just have that report sent once, you can have that report automatically sent to you based on whatever frequency you want. So you could have that report emailed to you every single day. You could have that report emailed to you, you know, every Monday. You could have that report emailed to you once a month. So you decide the frequency. But it is a great tool to stay on top of your data without having to remember to do it. So you're all busy on this call. You're consumed with other day-to-day activities, and sometimes analytics in your website fall to the back burner. This is a great way to make sure that it doesn't, and make sure you stay up to date with what's happening on your site. Now, earlier, before we started the presentation, I mentioned that we were going to offer free kind of one-to-one consultations for people that are interested in learning more about analytics or looking at their specific site data. So I want to encourage everyone to reach out to me. Call the phone number, send me a quick email. Jenny and I would be happy, or another member of our social media team would be happy to do some analytics training with you, no charge, and kind of walk you through your site, how your site's performing, give you some tips and best practices for what you can do to drive more traffic. And during the presentation, we had some great questions come in. We tried to answer a bunch of those, and there's been more just coming in. So I encourage everyone, we'll stay on the line in that right side column, submit your questions, and we'll try to get through as many of these as we can. And a question came in about blog content. and how and why that helps drive traffic. Well, blog content, every time you put in a new blog post, it creates a new page on your website. And it's a new page that can be indexed by Google or Bing and Yahoo. So what that does is it gives you another opportunity to rank well in search results. Now, there are a few key things that you need to do. You need to mix in specific keywords in key areas of your blog post. And the question here was related to, we rarely mention the word staffing agency in our blog. We don't want to be salesy. Should we add this somewhere else? Okay, so with your blogs, you want to make sure that you're providing valuable content. You don't want to be too salesy. So it's good that you're not trying to be too salesy. You want to be helpful. You want to provide good information. You want to be seen as a consultant and a partner. But I wouldn't hesitate with mixing the word staffing into your blog here or there. So write for the reader first. Think about your audience. Think about how you're going to be helpful. Write for the reader. But then go back and look at what you can do to mix in keywords in a few key areas. So you can mix things like staffing agency in a specific city in your tags of your blog post. You can mix them in the metadata of your blog post. You can mix them in the page title. If you're using a blogging platform like WordPress, you can adjust the URL to make sure that those keywords are in there. Those are all places that aren't blatant to the user, to the reader, but have a great impact on search results. So it definitely incorporate keywords there. Another question came in that when we were talking about social media, and I mentioned doing some fun things on social media. The question came in, how and why do fun things work to generate website traffic? And what we found sometimes is that the fun posts that maybe you had a Halloween contest and you put those up, those oftentimes get more traffic than some of the more business-related posts. And why is that? Well, part of it is because people are busy through their day, but they also like to kind of take a little break. So that's one reason. People love to put faces to a name, so they love to look at pictures. I saw an iStudy recently that said Facebook posts with pictures have a 200% more interaction on them. So pictures are fun. People enjoy that lighthearted type of information. Now, I wouldn't do that exclusively, and you need to do it sparingly and have good taste. But mixing in those fun things adds a personal side to your business and allows you to carry through your company culture as well. We had a few other questions that came in from looks like some of our past clients. You guys at Haley created our website. Do we have Google Analytics already installed there somewhere? You do. We, as a rule, install Google Analytics on every website that we create. And if you don't have access to that, we created your site. Reach out to us after the call. We'll make sure that you do get access so that you can see all these reports. We'll even walk you through again what to look at and take a look at data, and we can provide some other suggestions. Another question came in. Let's see here. I completely missed most of the webinar due to a conflict. Can I get a copy of it somehow? You sure can. What we're doing is recording this webinar. We'll make it available at lunchwithhaley.com. If you would like the recording, please reach out to us. You can use my email address. I'll make sure that you get a copy of the recording, and you can even take a look at the slides. So please reach out to me directly if you do want access to that. Good question came in. Where do you find out what modern keywords are popular at the moment? And one of the best free tools that I've seen out there, there are a bunch of different keyword research tools, but what I suggest doing is going to Google and typing in the search phrase Google External Keyword Tool. What that's going to do is bring you to the Google Adwords platform and allow you to type in search queries like staffing company, staffing agency, headhunter, terms like that you feel your audience may be searching for. And what I suggest doing when you're typing in those terms, also add geography. So if you're in a specific market, add your geography in. If you're in a specific industry, add your industry in. So don't just type in staffing. It's not going to give you as good a data as you need. Type in something like staffing in Cleveland, something specific. And that will tell you on average per month how much search traffic those terms get, and there'll also be a competition index there. So you can see if that term is extremely competitive or if it's not so competitive. And what I suggest doing is look for those keyword search strings that get a decent amount of traffic but aren't extremely competitive. That means there's a great opportunity for you to add content to your site related to those search terms and drive more traffic to your site. If it's not too competitive, you have a better chance of ranking well in search engines, becoming more visible, and getting more of that traffic. Let's see, another question came in. Can the free Google Analytics pull data and activity from Twitter? Let's see, for example, multiple Twitter sites. Yes and no. Google Analytics will track visits from Twitter and Facebook as a platform. You'll be able to look at whether they're coming from the regular version of Twitter and Facebook, or you'll see separate statistics for mobile versions of Twitter and Facebook. What you can't do is see what specific Twitter accounts traffic is coming from. So you can't get that granular, but you can see overall how much traffic is coming from those sources. All right, another question came in. What is the most important part of a website, and what do you suggest that every staffing firm needs? First and foremost, and I mentioned it earlier in the webinar, is I think every staffing firm out there needs a job board. It is the most popular feature that I've seen on our clients' websites, and sites that have job boards have, probably 30 to 40% more page visits than staffing firms that don't. The next thing I suggest doing after you have a job board is look at adding a blog to your site. A blog is the single best tool for driving more traffic to your website. It allows you to add new pages, new keywords, and as Jenny mentioned, clients that consistently blog, so look at least one new blog post a week. We see their search engine traffic over 9 months to a year more than double. In some cases, we see 300, 400, 500% increases in search traffic. So first job board, next the blog, but just having a blog isn't good enough. You need a good content strategy. Another question came in. My traffic has decreased over the last year. What should I be doing? Unfortunately, just based on that question itself, I can't tell you exactly what you should be doing without looking at the data. So please feel free to reach out to me after this, and we can look specifically at your site. But what I do see frequently, last year Google, in their algorithm updates, released something called Panda and Penguin, which were big algorithm changes. And it affected a lot of websites out there. I saw a statistic, I want to say like 30% of websites were affected. And if your site was affected, if you saw a big decrease in traffic, it probably means that you had a lot of inbound links from unreputable websites out there. So if you had a big decrease in traffic, you can use Google Analytics to figure out where and why that decrease happened. All right, and I think that are those were all the questions. If there are further questions, again, please feel free to use my email address. Give us a call. We're happy to answer those offline. Take us up on that offer. And thank you so much for joining us for Lunch with Haley. Don't forget to visit lunchwithhaley.com and sign up for our next webinar happening Tuesday, December 4th. And we have a very special guest, Scott Wintrip, one of my favorite trainers in the industry. He's going to be talking about the avoidant economy and how you can overcome staffing firms that have said, I've put my hiring on hold. So Scott is going to have some great tips there. Again, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you join us on our next Lunch with Haley.